Okay, appreciate everybody being here today for the Region 5 THSADA November meeting. You know, I keep on hoping that at some point we'll be able to meet in person. I miss seeing all of my friends, and I obviously in this format we can only have so many people here on the screen, but I do appreciate the hard work that everybody's putting in. I know what that's looked like for us, and I know what you guys are all doing to kind of keep your activities up and rolling. With that being said, I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I did text Dr. Elza and ask her to be back on with us, and I felt like that I have really been leaning on her in really to have her on here so much for so many of our last meetings. But every time I think that we're going to have a meeting without her being present, they have to put out an update. And so I always think that it's probably good for all of us to hear straight from the, excuse me, Susan Horse's mouth about, you know, what the update is and where we are as we're getting ready for a new sport. So Dr. Elza, I'm going to turn it over to you to really talk maybe briefly about anything that you might have to say about football playoffs and then the recent update that you released with soccer and baseball. And I know you and I had even briefly talked this week about looking forward into track season. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, awesome. I've been called way worse than a horse, I assure you. And I think all UIL staff has been called way worse than a horse here lately. It's good to see everybody. I'm like Ray. I just wish we could see you in person. But the good thing is we have events coming up, and we're going to get to see you in person, even if we're masked and all that stuff. Just, you know, being able to shake your hand and fist bump you. I know we all miss that. I mean, UIL, we're still not able to work out of our office, and it's just been challenging. I mean, it's just a new way of doing things, but you just trudge forward and you don't let those setbacks define you. And, you know, I just commend each one of y'all for being so resilient. It's that word adapt I keep using. It's just been impressive how y'all have adapted to the challenges that COVID present. And, you know, they've been abundant in volleyball, football, team tennis, cross country, and we really don't hear from y'all very much unless you just get into a scenario that you need that little bit of extra guidance on it. So I commend you. There's nothing easy about what we're doing, but I know I've said it, I'm a broken record. Every time we get to see that those kids are competing out on the courts and the fields, and, you know, all their hard work is able to, you know, to be applied in some way, maybe not in a perfect season. I think we all feel the reward and the purpose that we're in this profession for. Polk's on here, and Polk, hop in anytime. Sometimes my internet is a little bit sketchy, and it's not because I don't pay for it or pay for the upgrades or something. I don't know. I think I jinx it or something. So let's just talk about some of the current stuff. Probably the most recent thing, and Ray, thank you. I'm going to tell y'all, anytime y'all need us to hop on a Zoom at any time, we appreciate this platform. I know there's a lot of times we put things out and people think, golly, y'all didn't put enough. I mean, but on the other flip side of this, y'all know how it is. You can't win for losing. You can give too much information, or you don't give enough, and we're just going to fill in the gaps wherever we're needed. The softball, baseball, soccer. So let's talk soccer first. It's the first one. Everybody wanted to know what a site was. A site is a field. A site is a field for soccer. A site is a field for baseball and softball. A site is, you know, if you have a multi softball complex or a baseball complex, then it is the field. Okay. So we're going to, and our staff, Brandy, Joseph, AJ, myself, and Polk, we've got some Q&A that we're going to add to that document, but I held back on it just because I wanted to see what y'all's questions were today. But, you know, I know everybody asked those questions because they're just trying to get it right. The idea is to keep the teams apart and for teams not to enter the field until the other teams have exited the field. And to utilize those areas that they can warm up and be apart from other schools. The idea is not, if you have a multi-softball, baseball complex, for them to sit in the stands all together on top of each other, even if they have face coverings on, okay? So emphasize to your coaches that we didn't put a limit on it. I mean, and I think that was the first question that I received was, you know, how many? You know, well, we didn't put a limit on it. You've got your facilities and you can determine how many can come. You know your limitation, not more than 4 teams on one site. And they should be distanced when they're warming up for the next game, or they should be distanced when they're waiting to enter the field once the other team exits the field. Disinfect the dugouts. We don't define that to y'all. I mean, but it's clean up. You know, they've been sitting on the bench in the dugout. They've been hanging on the fences. I don't know. They've gone to the restroom. Disinfect those areas that they've been in. Let's keep the kids safe. Okay. We wanted them to have tournaments. They got them. Okay. And I'll come back. I don't know if Polk's answering questions right now in the chat, but we'll come back to that if anybody has questions they want to, direct to us. For track and spring tennis, it's right now a work in progress, and Polk has spent a whole lot of time on that. I don't know, do you want to give any preview to that, or you just want to wait until we get it finalized?
I think the main thing, I mean, you'll probably hit it. We hope to get that out as soon as we can as well, and it'll be for the invitational meet, of course, from a track standpoint, and we'll have to release the postseason structure at a later time, because that's going to be a whole nother scenario that, dates could change. Dates may not change when you get to that point, because finding officials and having that many people on site at once at those regional track meets are going to be difficult, depending on what the atmosphere is at that point.
So we hope to have that out in the next 10 days. If we don't have it prior to Thanksgiving break, it will be just shortly after. A lot of eyes have to look at that. I know Polk tries to get feedback from the coaches associations that are specific to track or have track membership. And I think we're close. Joseph's been also doing the same thing for spring tennis, because it's a little different than team tennis, and just trying to allow a little more latitude if we can with those outdoor activities. And his document right now is with the Texas Tennis Coaches Association. And that's another document that if we don't get it out prior to Thanksgiving, then we'll have it out just right after that time. Team tennis is next week. It's our first state championship. It's a little weird that you're not meeting with the staff in the office and all that stuff and all the things we do to prep. But the cool thing is that teams are continuing to play. We did lose some to COVID, and it doesn't get the big, front page of the sports page news that it does with football, but that's unfortunate. And I know y'all have heard us say it 100 times. I know Dr. Harrison has said this repeatedly when he speaks publicly, is that we knew they were not going to be perfect seasons. If they could have any form of season, then we felt like we accomplished something on behalf of kids. And I think all of y'all feel the same way. Same thing for volleyball. We've lost some teams to COVID. Cross country runners have had to be replaced. Team tennis is next Tuesday, the 17th at College Station. Volleyball is the 21st, the following Saturday at the Colwell Center in Garland. And then we've got cross country the 23rd and 24th there in Round Rock. And I know, at one of those events, we're going to see some of y'all at the high likelihood is probably going to be cross country. I hope y'all are able to come and support your kids. I know we had to reduce qualifiers for obvious reasons in that sport, but we're just excited about that. Football, y'all know our first round of playoffs for the 1 through 4A starts this week. I know our number one call is just, people saying they're losing games. They're not going to be able to make them up all of their football games, all of their volleyball games as we move closer to the district certification for 5A, 6A. But you know what, again, that whole word adapt is coming into play. The one thing I just want to remind y'all, it's in the postseason packets, and just in case y'all haven't read that far, we're not going back and getting teams that have been defeated. District certification, after the certification date, you cannot change your district representatives. And we've had a couple that after the district certification date, they lost a team due to COVID. We're not replacing those teams after district certification. Okay. That has worked so far, but again, we've had a handful, that in the sports combined that, it was after certification that they found out they couldn't play. 2 teams play, 1 wins, advances, gets COVID. We're not going back to get the defeated team. Okay. That just becomes a bye in the bracket. And then if you get to the state championship, the final game of the state championship, 2 teams play, Two teams, are set to play. One of them is has the COVID challenge. Their team is infected with the COVID. Then we will give those two teams 4 weeks to make up that state championship. Okay, at a site determined by them, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not going to end a season on a COVID, what everybody's referring to. These aren't our words, but I hear it a lot, so I've picked it up. A COVID forfeit. Okay, championships only. I think most of y'all already knew that, but I wanted to cover that with y'all just in case. Basketball's started up, and guess what? Across this nation, we are seeing numbers like we saw in July and August with COVID. Guys, hang in there. That's all we can tell you. I know that Tarrant County yesterday had, their county judge had issued a recommendation that they do not play athletics anymore. Don't know where that'll go or how that will land, but the same thing can happen in the counties that you guys live in and across the state. So hang in there, keep us informed. I mean, I feel like we're pretty plugged in, but it does help us when we know if you can't compete. And we're just, our fingers are crossed for you to finish your seasons and to get through them and get the next one started. Wrestling's the only thing I haven't talked about. And we had a staff call this morning. We need just a little bit more time to decide what we're going to do with wrestling. Our goal is to never not have a sport, but we may need to push it back and delay in light of some of the circumstances that we're facing in this state. That's a tough one. All the one-on-one in that sport. The only state we know that is making an attempt at it right now is Georgia. Illinois was, and this is all AJ updating us this morning. Illinois was supposed to have started and have pushed that date back again. So hang with us. Tell your wrestling coaches our goal is not to cancel, but we're just not ready to make we're not ready to make a final decision on that. And we've got a lot of runway in the spring if we have to continue to push it back. I'm going to kick it over to Polk, and he may have zero, but I think I've covered everything that we would want and anything else that you guys may have in the form of questions. Brian, did you have anything?
No, I really don't have anything other than just keep reading all these postseason packets and the information, like cross country, for instance, is coming up, and of course tennis and volleyball, because of all the differences in the seating and what you've got to do to get there. I mean, cross country, it's all pre-sale. We're selling tickets by the car. We don't have any shuttles. It's a 2-day meet. So just make sure you're reading all that stuff and your coaches are getting that info out to the parents and the community.
Oh, I'm glad you said that, Brian, because I want to, some of these on here could end up having some state tennis qualifiers. At state tennis, it will be limited to 60 seats per school for your spectators. So 120 total. And Joseph will guide you through that process if you have teams that come. And at volleyball, we have just right at 1,300 seats available. It's a 6,000 seat facility. So if you do have teams qualify, later on down the road for the 5A and 6A, or right now in team tennis, lean on the director of that sport. Joseph and Brandy are armed with those answers. I can help too, but we don't want you to be in limbo with that. It's uncharted territory for every single one of us. And I'm glad Brian brought that up. Anything else? Did we have any questions that we needed to answer, Ray, or are we good?
Well, no, I think we're good, but I do want to ask one question, maybe for those of us to learn from those that are already competing in the playoffs, some of the smaller schools. Because one thing that Debbie and I had talked about recently is about playoff negotiations and even like neutral sites as far as, COVID protocols and participation and number of tickets and all of that. Have you guys had any questions to, work up towards your office from schools, that are about to participate in the first round of the playoffs about disagreements really with more COVID related protocols like attendance, et cetera? Has there been anything that you might advise as far as some of that?
Brian, you want to take that one? I know you get more calls on that.
Yeah, we've gotten a few where some schools that have lost a coin flip, say home and home, and are traveling, and they're only getting 200 tickets because that's what the protocol to that stadium is using on the visitor side, where the home side's got 1,450 tickets. And we're kind of working through that because, you know, there is that piece to where you can request half the stadium. And in a normal year, I don't think the visiting team would ever worry about requesting half the stadium. But in that scenario, we've got some folks that are at that point requesting half the stadium to be able to get their folks in there. And the main thing, we try to get both parties on the phone and have them work it out. So it may not be exactly 50-50, but still allowing that visiting team that just lost a toss. I mean, they're going to play somewhere else. They shouldn't be punished, to have enough tickets to give to their parents, band parents, cheer parents, and making sure those essential folks are getting in there. So those things will come up, especially with the smaller stadiums. But, you know, you may have to get administrators involved and not just the two coaches, as y'all well know when those come up.
So really just as a summary though, just of what we've kind of talked about, you kind of defined what a site is for the soccer and baseball and softball tournaments, which was a big question. As far as track, we should be looking for something somewhere around, right, either shortly before or after Thanksgiving vacation that would kind of guide, you know, planning for track as far as that's concerned. And that we just need to be kind of working through those packets, postseason packets, as we advise coaches in our communities about postseason events. Is there anything else?
No, the only other thing I was gonna just let y'all know is, if you didn't catch it, we gave an extra week to softball, and we gave an extra week to baseball, because they really lost their entire seasons last year. And that was at the request of THSCA, TGCA, and the Texas High School Baseball Coaches Association.
Right.
So just wanted to update y'all on that. I think that was well deserved, and it was kind of a victory cry across the state from those coaches that coach baseball and softball. So didn't add any scrimmages or any games like that, but we did add an extra week of practice.
Okay. All right. Anything? I don't see any other questions. I appreciate you guys and your time today. Thank you so much for everything that you do for us. I mean, and more so just your availability. I was telling somebody the other day, and I'm kind of embarrassed about this, but I'm also proud of the type of representation that we have, that there have been many times that I've called you and I've called Brian and AJ, and it's been almost midnight. And I'm embarrassed to say that, but, you know, almost every time you guys have picked up the phone and given us an answer that we needed so that we could do our job. So thank you for your availability and your service. We appreciate you.
Thank y'all. Y'all stay safe. Stay safe, and we hope to see you soon. And at Cross Country or one of our events. Y'all take care. Thanks for having us, Ray.
Thank you, guys. Okay, next, before we get to our sponsors, I did ask Britton Kaufman, who's the chapter president of the Houston chapter of THSADA Soccer, to be with us today, because as I was making plans for this meeting, you know, and all the adjustments that some of us had to make for basketball officials, I thought, you know what, we hadn't reached out to soccer, and soccer's about to get started. So I reached out to Britton last week. We had a great conversation, and he gave me a really good update on where his association is with their availability to meet our needs for soccer. And I just asked him to give you guys the same update that he gave me. So Britton, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Ray. I wanted to say hey to everybody. I hope everyone's having a great year. We're looking forward to soccer getting started at the end of this month. I've got good news. We have 229 registered THSADA soccer referees in the Houston chapter, and we are 30 referees ahead of where we were last year. So we are continuing to push, and we want to try and get to 350 registered THSADA soccer referees. That's our goal for this year. A lot of our referees, unfortunately, wait till the last minute. So this was a nice surprise, but I think we'll see us making up some big ground in the next 3 to 4 weeks, maybe even 5 weeks. We do not have, as I was speaking with Ray last week, we do not have any, or are not anticipating at this time. Of course, COVID could throw us a curveball, but at this time, we're not anticipating not being able to cover anyone's matches. So we're going to go full steam ahead. We've got a brand new vice president of scheduling. His name is Dan Butler, and we've got some really quality assigners that are eager to make sure that everyone's needs are met. So I would just ask that if you have any questions at all about this year's games, about scrimmages, anything at all that we can help you with, you can reach out to me. And you can also, and my number's on our website. Ray, I want to plug our website. It's HSSOA.com. That's HSSOA.com, and that stands for Houston Southwest Soccer Officials Association. So that's where we stand, and want to make sure everyone, just as a final reminder, please review the UIL considerations for COVID in regards to soccer. There are some changes that the UIL has asked for distancing in regards to flipping the coin. And we're not going to have multiple captains this year. It's just one captain. And there's some things for your subs to know about. So as we begin to educate our referees on what these are, would you also please review those on your own with your student athletes?
Britton, let me ask you this. I know when we talked last week, you had mentioned that you guys had, even as a chapter, had pushed out some information maybe to the state THSADA office about recommendations of things that you would maybe like to see in the environment to make a more safe environment.
Sure.
You sent me something, but were you able to find that larger document that I could push out to all regional members?
Well, actually, before our meeting, Ray, just to give everyone a little bit of background on this, I serve on the THSADA State Soccer Board. I'm the District 8 Director, which is Houston, Bryan, College Station, Beaumont, and the Fort Bend County that handle the TAPS schools. And we met in July and were asked to provide some feedback on COVID and some things that referees would need to, could potentially be responsible for doing. And Ray, I found that final document on UIL. It's already been updated and it's actually on the UIL website. So if you go to UIL Soccer and you actually go to the 2021 COVID calendar and update, it is at the end of that paragraph that UIL has already put on the website.
Well, I appreciate you being with us today. And kind of like I said to Dr. Elza, and some of the people that I'm looking at can remember earlier meetings in the last 5 years that we had where some representatives from the Soccer Officials Association had come to visit with us. And I would say, and I mentioned this to you directly when we talked, that since you've kind of taken over, your availability, the professionalism, the way that the chapter has been run, it has been, I think, a big improvement. And Britton, we thank you for what you're doing, and really thank you for the good news. That beyond the minor accommodations that we're making, that we're not going to have to turn everything upside down to get our refs at our game. So thank you so much.
We had one question from Jimmy Greer about distancing purposes and people warming up behind the goal. I think anytime an official, and then I'm just going to leave it at this, and if you have any other questions, contact us offline. We don't see a problem with people warming up behind the goal. Where we do see a problem is when the people warming up get so close to the goal line that they begin to interfere with active play. So we can communicate that to our referees to relax that this year based on the COVID situation. But thank you all so much. We appreciate your time, and feel free to reach out to us directly at any time. We'll do our best to help you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
That is some good news that they're ahead of schedule and that they're anticipating that they're going to be able to meet all of our needs this year. So that's awesome news. I'm going to go ahead and move to the state sponsor portion of our agenda. And we're going to start off with Symmetry Turf and John Rouse. John, I was saying before we got started today that I know Vince is on here from Tomball, and they're very happy with the fields that you guys installed for them. And I've seen pictures, they look beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you and just appreciate your support for our association.
Well, thank you for having me, and you're going to actually get to see that baseball field here in just a moment. Let me first of all start off with just thanking y'all for the opportunity. These unprecedented times, it's extraordinary to see the work that you all as athletic directors have done for our coaches and our kids and your communities in light of some very challenging times. I retired last June of 2019, right before all this went crazy. And I'm very thankful that the good Lord pulled the trigger when we did. So I spent 25 years coaching, and I can't think of a better group of of folks than coaches and ADs to get us through this and do what's best for kids. So thank you for what you do on behalf of Symmetry Sports Construction and AstroTurf. We're proud to sponsor and support you any way we can. Just tell you a little bit about Symmetry Sports Construction. We're a full-service sports construction company based out of Mount Pleasant, Texas. We pride ourselves on service. We are the exclusive partner with AstroTurf in the state of Texas. We are very prideful of that partnership. And as you know, AstroTurf, along with being the very first synthetic turf company, also prides itself on having the safest and highest quality products on the market. The Trionic fiber was voted as the Synthetic Turf Council Innovation of the Year. The Nylon Root Zone, which Mr. Sebo is going to be very familiar with, is a great product and keeps the infill from migrating, maintaining a safe surface, and extending the functional life of the product itself. So we're very fortunate, very proud to partner with AstroTurf and all their products. We do natural grass fields. We do synthetic turf for baseball, softball, football, soccer, everything, tracks, tennis courts. So we are full service, as well as maintenance to keep those fields at their premium safe levels, as well as extending the life of those. So if you need to get some maintenance service done on either your field or your indoor, please don't hesitate. I will have my contact information on the chat so that you can have that. I would like to spend just a few seconds here showing you some pictures if I can share my screen. Bob, we tried this earlier. We'll assume that it's going to continue to work. So let me see if I can get this up here, just show you a few photos. So the first thing is we want to thank you for the opportunity. Here's the things that we provide for you. And again, I'll have my contact information on the chat for you to look at. The first one we have is Tomball ISD. This is their baseball field that we just finished. Very proud of this field. It's a beautiful field and also top of the line. And after not having been able to play last year, we're hopeful that they'll be able to get on that and spend many games on it, as well as hosting some games. We know that in the spring, these baseball and softball ones struggle to get practices and games in, and Tomball won't have that issue from going forward. Here's our softball field at Austin Westlake that we finished. This field actually has the rock fill, which is the temperature reducing infill, and Austin proper prefers this to crumb rubber because of their aquifer situation. Viter, this is a photo of just about being complete. It is complete now. Beautiful field. And as I go through a few of these, I just want you to notice the differences in colors and design that different districts choose. This one has the black end zones, obviously the alternating panels of high contrast, and then the sidelines. This is a beautiful photo of Melissa ISD up in the Metroplex. This was early in the season, playing with that full moon. Beautiful shot. We actually will be doing their indoor, which will be one of the largest in the state when it's complete. This is in East Texas and Palestine. Just finished this. You'll notice this has the contrasting colors as well, but these are 10-yard contrasting colors, which is a little bit different than some of the others. And we have to put this one in. This is Dallas Paris Episcopal, just because of the uniqueness of the field, the blue. It's also in the flight pattern for Dallas Love Field. And so we have people tell us, hey, I saw it on coming into Love Field or leaving Love Field. So it does stand out in quite a unique field. Beautiful. This one we just finished at Nederland. Also AstroTurf Trionic fiber, the Brock fill, temperature reducing infill with the root zone. Beautiful field at Nederland. This is Corpus Christi ISD, again, alternating panels. and green end zones, which is a little unique, but trying to be impartial, a great option for a multi-high school district. This is Ennis High School. We actually finished this right before graduation. And if you'll recall, everybody had little pods that they were trying to seat everybody in on that field. And they got to have it on this new field. Very, very nice field. Brazos Christian finished this field back in the spring. Another beautiful field. This is up in the Dallas Metroplex, Prosper Rock Hill. This just shows you the baseball, softball, football, and track that we just completed at their new high school. Great facility and a beautiful school as a whole. And then one of my favorites is Bullard High School in East Texas. Just the vibrant colors and how pretty it is, but notice it's a solid green field, no contrasting panels, just a really pretty field. And then Fort Bend Christian, again, alternating panels, gold end zone, green on the sidelines. Another field that we finished, I think, early spring, late winter. Very nice field. And then Llano ISD, another beautiful picture with the sunset and great background, but another field that we're very proud of. So with that, I will put this information in the chat to follow us on Twitter to be entered into a $100 Visa gift card. We'll have that drawing on the 15th, and I will include our Twitter handle for that. Again, if you need anything from us information-wise, happy to provide that for you. And just again, thank you for all that you all do. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, John. We're going to move next to Game Time Hydration, and we've got both Martin Wilson and Norman Simmons here with us today. Guys, I'm going to turn it over to you. Martin, you need to probably unmute yourself there. There we go.
How you doing, everyone? My name is Norman Simmons. I'm Director of Partnerships, Philanthropist at Game Time Hydration. I'm actually stepping in today. Our CEO couldn't make it, Ted Thompson. He's facing the coronavirus, and we're wishing him well getting back here. If you haven't heard about Game Time, we are an interactive hydration company. We specialize in alkaline water, interactive apparel, and media. Our company is focused on 3 areas in high school sports, and that's pretty much the mental health of athletes, the physical health of athletes, and of course, the financial health of the athletic department. What we put together here at Game Time Hydration is a nonprofit, for-profit program that is dedicated to hydrating sports through athletics and high school, from elementary school all the way up to Division I collegiate sports. What we do is we offer a program to high schools to help rebuild, especially post-corona, with the alkaline hydration sponsorship to your program. We also, we understand that most of the programs have these deals with apparel companies in place, Nike, Adidas, etc. We are not in competition with those companies. We are nonprofit, so we're looking to have an interactive program with you guys, and it's health and wellness. We're really based on health and wellness. We're really looking to hydrate these kids, and we've created a system that's a 3-part system: physical, mental, and financial. And we're going to get into that real quick and tell you guys about us. If you guys have an opportunity, you can go to our website right now just to look us up. That is, when you get a chance to, that's www.gametimehydration.com. And what we do is, on the physical side, we provide hydration to your athletic department all year long through all sports. So local distributors in each city, we connect with those guys and provide free hydration for them to deliver to each school bi-weekly for the athletic department for all sports. Usually enough hydration to cover all sports through each season. We also have an interactive media component that we've brought to America to allow the interactions in sports, media, and our student athletes to connect back to education. As we know, it's going to be, as you know, it's rough right now to get the kids to re-engage in sports. But again, the education and communicating with our kids have changed. So we decided to bring something unique to the table. Again, helping the athletic program communicate and rehabilitate post-corona. We are adding 55-inch monitors, free installation for our schools and partners to have an interactive relationship with the students in the sports areas. So what does this do and why is this important? This is important because in the age of technology here, we have to upgrade to communicate with the athletes, with our student athletes throughout time. The PA system, we believe, is no longer useful for the high school space. So we've decided to donate 55-inch, 65-inch monitors where applicable in spaces that are through sports, throughout, gyms, hallways, where applicable, where now coaches, teachers, important messages can be posted on these monitors, programs, anything that the school has going on that is available for students to communicate with the students at a high level. We have inside of our partner here with the monitors, we have different programs inside of that program that allow coaches, teachers, et cetera, to go live on these monitors. And this is where we believe the communication is to get back the attention of our athletes on the media side component. And again, this is free. We give these to our partners in an attempt to have an interactive hydration experience. So again, there's two components to this. There is a full sponsorship where you have our hydration that comes weekly, bi-weekly. You have our interactive apparel that we have. Everything is custom. You have rep. We are Houston-based, north side of Houston. A lot of people didn't know that. We're a Houston-based company. We started in 2015, north side Rankin Road. So we came a long way, all the way to have 22 countries that we're doing partnerships in with our interactive hydration. We are partners with Real Madrid, the Premier League, as well as many other professional leagues. In America, we're in deals with five Division I conferences, as well as a few Division II conferences. Our mission is to bring the gap closer to with hydration, sport, health and wellness. Health and wellness is no longer taking back in sports. We have the patent alkaline hydration, a patent alkaline sports drink. The San Francisco 49 are big partners of our sports drinks, as well as many partners around the nation in collegiate sports from elementary school all the way up to Division I. Okay, so again, on the mental health side, we believe that apparel, camps, the things that we offer inside of our apparel package is pretty much each team have an opportunity to have custom apparel throughout the entire school. No mock apparel from our websites. Everyone has a rep. Everyone has custom apparel, 12, anything that's needed in all sports. And what happens is, what we decided to do is, because we have so many athletes, we have over 240 athletes that are signed to Game Time, we decided not to use them for advertising purpose, but to use their likeness in a physical form. So we've decided that every school that have a partnership with us, the top players from those schools in each sports, if we have a camp available, will attend a camp locally. What does that do? Again, I'm an athlete. I played Division I basketball. I wasn't really that good, but I still went Division I. And the mental health to this stuff is apparel. Why? Because these kids are trained to understand that if you play good, you look good, you win. And we believe that the sponsorships, quote unquote, the deals that you guys have for most of the schools around America with these top brands, there aren't sponsorships. So what we did is we added our monitor component that allow you guys to replace the PA system, add live feeds, allow to see the programs, and we also added an attribute from our partners from being a nonprofit for-profit advertising. Where applicable, the athletic department will receive a stipend quarterly from local advertising and nationwide advertising with partners that we already have, i.e. Puma is our shoe provider and partner for Game Time Hydration. So we're allowed to obviously give you guys different shoes for your main teams, for your top teams, as well as monetize at a very low price. Everything is wholesale with Game Time because we are a philanthropist nonprofit company. We are not in competition with the other brands that are selling stuff. We do not sell water in the stores. We do not sell apparel in stores. We only give away water through hydration to hydrate the youth, and we vend apparel wholesale to hydration to education to help with their budgets and budget cuts. Obviously, you know, in some states they've taken the water fountains out of the schools, which again, how are we hydrating our athletes? You guys are going into different budgets for hydration. We're looking to help you with that.
Martin, let me ask you this. We're
Sure.
about, you know, up, your time is about up, but
Sure.
it sounds like that you guys obviously have a lot that we might be interested in. Is there
Yes.
a website that you could possibly put in the chat room so that, you know, I think it would give everybody a little bit, there you go, gametimehydration.com. And if you could put your direct contact number here in the chat as well. That way, as our membership takes a look at your products, if there's interest there, they can contact you directly. Is that
Absolutely.
good?
Yes. Game Time Hydration. We have over 200,000 followers. We're looking to expand association and help incentivize you guys' programs. And again, if we have the opportunity to do that through hydration, we're welcome to do that. And thank you again for having us.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hey, and then moving on next is Brock USA. With us from Brock is Amy Champion. Amy's been a good friend of our association, and Ronnie Pascal as well. So guys, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thanks, Ray. Hey, it's Ronnie here. Amy had to jump off her computer. Keeps going in and out. She's having some problems. So I told her I would jump in today. Anyway, I just want to thank you guys for having us. We really value this relationship and this partnership. I know Amy's been doing some great things with a lot of your members, and it's going really, really well. So we're really happy with it. Just to kind of introduce us a little bit. So we're Brock USA. We manufacture a shock pad and a natural infill for synthetic turf. So first and foremost, we consider ourselves a safety company. We look at the athletic field as being the largest piece of safety equipment that you guys have. And it's the one common piece of safety equipment that everybody plays on. So once you put the field down, it's kind of what you have for 8 to 10 years. So in our opinion, it's something that you have to make sure you get it right from the beginning. A little bit about us. We're based out of Boulder, Colorado. We installed our first field in 2006. So we've been doing this in the US longer than anyone else. And to date, we have over 100 million square feet installed in the US. So we are by far the industry leader. When we look at synthetic turf, our goal is to try to mimic the best natural grass that we possibly can. I was a professional soccer player. I love natural grass. I think almost any athlete you talk to said they'd rather play on a really, really good natural grass field. So our goal is to try to mimic that from a safety standpoint and from a performance standpoint. So we look at the athletic field as having 3 points of safety. The first one is impacts. So impacts are any big impact, like when your body hits the surface or when your head hits the surface. I said I was a soccer player. I was actually a goalkeeper. So my job was to dive around on these fields. So I've got a pretty good indication of how it feels when you land on it. And the difference between some good fields, especially the old school fields that first came out, compared to what we have now, there's a huge difference. So outside of impacts, which again is your body to head impact, we look at traction as the second piece of the point of safety. And traction is really your foot to surface interaction. So this is where you get the performance of the field, how it feels underfoot. We're seeing a lot of injuries on some NFL fields, and we think that's directly related to the type of turf, the way the turf is manufactured. And we know that there's a better way to create a system, and that's kind of what we're pushing towards. And then the third one, which is huge for you guys, is heat. Heat is a big safety issue. I live in Virginia. It gets really hot in Virginia also. We have a lot of issues here. But the only way to really solve the heat issue with synthetic turf is to go to a natural infill that absorbs water. And the way it works is the fiber, the green fiber on a field is what gets really, really hot. And you need an infill that holds on to moisture. So as the fiber heats up, the moisture evaporates. Kind of like when your body sweats, it's called evaporative cooling. So we have a new infill that's called Brockfill. It's completely natural. We make it ourselves. It is taking off in Texas. We have over 10 fields down there now within a year. All the feedback we're getting has been really, really good. So we're really excited about Brockville. We really think that it's doing well. It feels like natural grass. We have a lot of football coaches who tell us that they can practice in the afternoon now instead of having to go at 6 a.m. Because heat really isn't an issue. So I guess to kind of summarize things, like I said, we're a safety company. We really like the system approach when you look at your synthetic turf field. The system includes a shock pad, a really good turf product, and a natural infill that helps reduce the heat and plays more like natural grass. If you have any questions, I know Amy's down there all the time. She's a huge resource for you. And again, we really appreciate the partnership.
Thank you so much for being here with us today and for what Brock USA does for our association. I know you guys are a big partner, so thank you again.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
We're going to transition pretty quick right now to our committee reports. You know, again, as we're getting into kind of the meat of our athletic seasons, and a lot of us are kind of swamped with a lot of overlap right now, I think it's important to kind of come back to the important business of our association. And we're going to start with Scott giving us an update on membership. Scott?
Okay, just a reminder that membership goes from September 1st to August 31st. And you can register online. You do individual group membership. I think we're over 950 members at this time. So make sure you pay for your membership for this year or renewed it. And just one other thing, just a lot of times people ask about the benefits. They have, as a member, you have access to the events that we have. The state conference, the PBK Hall of Honor ceremony, the fall forums. There's also professional development opportunities as far as TAC, CPE, being a member. You also have opportunity to be on the board or be an officer. And then we have the regional meetings like we're attending today, and we're also able to network and share information and get valuable information. And then you have the resources like the newsletter and the e-news little blurbs we get every once in a while. Then access to the website, the buyer's guide, the job postings, scholarship opportunities, all those things are, come with the membership. So when someone's asked what's the benefit, you kind of share some of that information with them. But other than that, everybody have a good day.
Okay, I don't see Ronald here on the call, but Bob, is there any update that you want to give our membership about the TAC classes?
I think what I'll do is I'll include those comments in my state business, so you can go ahead and move on to the other committees.
Okay, next up would be publications. I know Dina and Armando are both on the call, so Dina, I'll turn it over to you guys.
All right, good morning. Thanks, Ray. We do have the deadline for our newsletter articles to be submitted by tomorrow, and so that will be coming out, I think, for the conference. And so if you need to submit your article, please send that to Rusty Dowling. Armando?
Okay. Thank you.
I don't have nothing to add. She covered everything right there. Just so you know, I don't have nothing to add. But
all right, all right. The athletic committee, Andre, you have an update for us today?
Yes, sir, I do. Good morning, everyone. Glad to see you all. Here's an update from Legislative Council meeting. As you all know, we were supposed to have a pilot program for water polo that has been delayed for 1 year. And so we'll keep you up to date as to when that is back on and how that's going to look when we resume that. Also, we had the baseball coaches wanting their pitchers and catchers to come in 2 weeks earlier than everyone else. Right now, that proposal is being studied by the UIL staff. So that's just some FYI. There's nothing, no movement on that right now. Also, the URL staff is going to survey a proposal to allow schools the flexibility to interchange with the 60-minute skill training versus the 60-minute strength and conditioning. And so there was a lot of conversation wrapped around how do we do that? What does that look like? And so again, that's something else that the staff is going to study. These proposals were denied, rejected, or took no action. Number one, a proposal to create a separate 1A conference in volleyball, softball, and baseball. Number two, a proposal to consider a $5 increase for officials. Now, we know that there was a $5 increase this year, but the officials were asking for the 21-22 school year for there to be another increase and or create a long-term deal. And so Mike Bass and the officials committee will give you more information on that. But right now we do have the increase for the 2021 and the 21-22 is on hold for right now. A proposal to adjust the junior high athletic start time, that is going to be, they took no action on that either. And last but not least, pass the following proposal. Again, this goes back to the officials, and Troy, keep your hat on. A proposal to amend 1204 to adjust the porter-to-porter travel reimbursement and remove the last mileage ring. So the last mileage ring, and again, when all this came out, we knew that there was going to have to be some adjustments. And as far the officials was for this, moving that last mileage ring, the Legislative Council was for it, and it will be removed, and we won't have to worry about that, which I don't think that really affects any of us anyway, but it's still something we just need to make sure we monitor and keep our eye on. So that's it from the athletic committee.
Carla, since we talked a little bit about officials, I know Mike couldn't be with us today, but you're standing in for him. Do you have an update on the officials? Something to add there?
Not really, other than the things that Andre brought up. The only other thing that he wanted to make sure you guys knew is as we talk to the people in the officials committee, in their areas, in their regions, their officials groups are allowing football officials to set up a game out. So if all 4 people can agree, they are allowing those in other regions. So hopefully we can get something accomplished there.
We're gonna come back to that here in a second. Okay. Vince, policy. You have anything from the policy committee? Any update?
Nothing on policy, Ray.
Okay. So Bob, I am going to turn it over to you. I know that I did not see Rodney on the call. So maybe with the awards, TAC, and then the state conference, I'm sure you have some state business, some updates for us as far as the state association.
Sure, I'll be happy to. Just a couple of quick updates. We all know our virtual state conference will be December 7th through 10th. There will be live programming featuring our leader, Rusty Dowling, on one day, and he'll be every day. And then Dr. Elza will be one day. Dr. Brydup will be the last day. Our Commissioner of Education, Mike Marath, will be one day. And then we'll have our officers another day. So 8:45 to 10 will be live programming each of the 4 days. And then we will have pre-recorded broadcasts that will occur at 11, 1, and 3 each of those 4 days. And our very own Debbie Decker is the author of one of those broadcasts. So Debbie, thank you for doing that. We appreciate you. Just a reminder also that you need to have registered for the conference in order to be able to watch any of the video content. At the end of the conference, all the things that were broadcast at 11, 1, and 3 and all the live broadcasts will be available in our THSADA library for you to watch whenever in the world you get time to do it. Right now, time is is not very accessible to you. So even in January and February and March, it'll still be there for you. Let's see. Awards. This is for Rodney. Since we have no live or in-person events this December, we're moving part of our awards to a new event called the Spring Sponsor Showcase. That'll be for all of our members and our key sponsors, and it'll feature, along with professional development and TAC classes, maybe a golf tournament, and also an award reception for our regional ADs of the year from 1920. And then our national awards, our Jill Bill Fox, and then our PBK AD of the Year award that would have been given last March, last June, and then this December. All of our Hall of Honor inductees, we will slide those guys over to the June state conference. We'll be at the Kalahari in Round Rock. So we're trying to honor in person most of our awards in March at the new sponsor showcase. And then we'll have a full class of awards, including last year's Hall of Honor inductees that will occur in June. There will be a lot more coming out about the Spring Sponsor Showcase. That'll also be at the Kalahari in Round Rock, and also subsequent information about the state conference coming up. And then let me look one more thing. Oh, the TAC update. We know that all of our classes that we're going to do virtually will be tied to a TAC class. So in order to get credit, what will happen is you'll watch the TAC video, either the broadcast at 11, 1, or 3, or in the library whenever you get a chance. At the end of that video will be a verification code. You'll just punch that in and you'll get credit for taking that class. So we won't have any delay in your certification if you're still working on that. I think that's all I have for right now. We had 105 at our highest number today. So thanks to all of you for attending today. Thanks to Ray for organizing this. Another great meeting. I hate that we're having to do this, but I think it is meaningful and beneficial for all of our members. So kudos to all of you who participated today. Ray, I'll turn it back over to you.
So just to kind of give everybody a quick update on what the next, 20 minutes or so is going to look like as we finish up our meeting, I just kind of, as you're making critical decisions about whether to stay on or hop off, we're going to talk a little bit about the situation with the football officials. And then we do have a panel that's really going to talk a little bit about basketball season upcoming, soccer, and that update that was just given to us, a little bit about track. I know that I'm getting a lot of questions from our track coaches. I have some questions about travel and out of district travel and tournaments, but I want to start off with giving you an update on the playoffs and our Houston chapter for those of us that predominantly utilize the Houston chapter for our playoff officials assignment. Recently, I had heard back from Alvin White after the meeting that he had been on, who was a chapter president, and he had reconfirmed after surveying at our request all of his membership that 25% of his membership was against their current policy, which would mean that we had to get down to to the actual matchup of the two final teams in order to hold an official. And 75% of his membership was actually for that current policy. I explained again, and I shared with all of you guys that I think our entire membership was against that, and that in talking to informally the Houston Football Coaching Association, that I felt like that there was not a lot of support for their current way of doing things. I shared all that with you, and I contacted, as promised, James Clancy, who's here with us today, the head football coach and campus athletic coordinator for Klein Cain. He's also the chapter president of the Houston Football Coaching Association, and his board met on this exact topic on Monday night. And so, James, I'm going to kind of just quickly turn it over to you and let you give kind of an update to our members of kind of where your board is with this and your membership and some of the next steps that you and I have talked about.
Thank you, Coach. Good morning, everybody, and I hope everybody's staying safe and staying healthy. I appreciate all the unsung heroes out there that are allowing our kids to continue to compete, and all the countless hours and decisions that we have to make to allow games to be played and kids to keep chasing their dreams. So just those of us that know that all that goes into it, I really, really do appreciate everybody on this call. I wanted to kind of clarify some things from the last meeting that Coach referenced when Alvin White had came on. March 4th of 2020, we sat down with the Houston THSADA leadership, and the purpose of that meeting was this. We wanted to discuss why the policy 10 with the procedure number 11 that was amended, why it was rolled out the way that it was rolled out, and why there was miscommunication, and why at such a critical time at the end of the 2019 football season did we find out that procedure had changed. And in that meeting, They explained their reasoning for it. And at the time, Coach Sean McDowell from Richmond Foster was the president. I was the vice president, and I brought my incoming vice president, Coach Chris Brister of Cy Falls, to that meeting. And then Coach Chris Massey, formerly of Deer Park, was also present. And it was basically for us to make sure that our association was going to be on the same page with Houston THSADA moving forward. Okay, so again, I'll say that it was March 4th, and I think everybody knows that March 4th, 2020, the next week or so, our world kind of got turned upside down, and playoff officials selection process got put on the far back burner. And our focus then went to, obviously when the sports season had ended that spring, and then we started talking about, well, how are we going to do officials picks and things of that nature. So we really never got back to having a discussion of whether the Coaches Association was, for or against it. We had so many other things that had been put in front of us that, that topic just never got brought up. I think all of you were familiar with what a task it was for us to get official selections done with the 2 different start dates of seasons. And, the small schools up to 4A obviously having a separate selection, and then the 5A and 6A schools doing it over at the Merrill Center in Katy in August. So there were a lot of things that got kind of put in front. And then, Coach Zepeda was good enough to bring me back to, focusing on having that discussion with them. We never had a vote or an agreement as an association that we were in support of that policy. That, like I said, that topic had gotten tabled and just other things that got put in front of it. So what we decided to do was to get our board of directors that together for this new year, which we did this past Monday night. And it was an overwhelming majority for us to align ourselves with the ADs Association that we prefer to have the traditional pre-selection that we're all used to. So when you can have an agreement between whatever teams that will most definitely be involved, and you can get a site and a time, you can get them to agree to a crew to have that crew selected. So that's one less thing that we all have to worry about. The stance that I took with my guys is, and I think that all of you can resonate with this, so you can get 4 different football coaches from 4 different teams to agree on one officiating crew. That's an accomplishment within itself. We need to be able to lock that in if we know a date and time in a situation like that. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew from our standpoint as a coach association why we, were involved with the first meeting, and then, those topics had gotten tabled, and now we're really just kind of now back into that conversation with the officials. So I'm happy to answer any questions or clarify anything else. For those of you that don't know, we have 125 member schools, 22 board members that represent 9 different independent school districts. So it's a pretty good sampling of opinion from across the greater Houston area, the people that would be affected by the policy and by this process. So we felt pretty confident with taking that stance based off of the feedback that we got from our members.
So as far as next steps, just to wrap this up, and then I obviously would ask for any comment through the chat or for any of the participants. You guys remember at our late November meeting last year in Katy, the secretary of the Houston Football THSADA had said that the reason that they made the change was it was at the request of the football coaches. James had clarified for me that at no time did their organization make that request. That was revisited a little bit in his meeting in March. I expressed, and I told you guys this when I gave you the update, that at this point, 25% of the officiating membership is against this policy. I think an overwhelming majority of our membership is against this policy. And then the board of directors is almost unanimously of the Houston football coaches against this process and policy. As such, I talked to James this morning, this has to happen pretty quickly, but we're going to try to re-engage with Alvin White this week and ask for a meeting. And from a couple of us and a couple of the members of the board of directors of the Football Coaching Association to see if we can work through this. One of the things that I'm starting to fear is I have heard talk out there from people in our association and other football coaches about that they're so frustrated with this that they're talking about utilizing UIL to assign officials in lieu of utilizing Houston chapter officials. I think we need to be careful about making that type of threat, but I do want Alvin to be aware that that talk is out there actively, and that there are many members, especially with all this COVID going around and so much stuff out there, that to be able to settle some of this ahead of time is very helpful. So with that being said, we're going to request a meeting for as early as next week, because we've got to get on this. And I think if that doesn't work, the other thing I talked to Rusty about, and Bob, if you want to comment on this, you know, Rusty had also mentioned the possibility of bringing our concerns almost simultaneously to the state THSADA chapter about all of this, because other chapters are not utilizing, from my understanding, this method of official selection if you get a 4-team guarantee and a site guarantee that would guarantee an official a place to call a game no matter who the opponent was. So thoughts on that, on next steps, on where we are with this, etc. Troy, I see you already unmuted yourself, so I'll let you go.
I'm gonna be the good here. I mean, I think trying to get to the table and trying to talk is absolutely the best thing. I don't think I'm a good person for that group, honestly, but I do think it's a good point. I understand why they want that. The reason 75% of that chapter wants it is because now crews that won't get a game will get a game, or they'll get more important games. They have chance at getting better games if they have this rule in place. I go back to, from the frustrating thing for me is I felt like we were lied to. I felt like it was shoved down our throat, and we employ them. And yet they feel like they employ us. And so I agree with you, Ray, but at the end of the day, I won't have a problem in the world. I won't threaten to go UIL. I don't have a problem with it. I'll just go UIL. I'll spend the money.
I think many of us are getting to that point, you know. So I want him to be aware of that. And what I told James is that, you know, once we start going down that road, then it becomes a little bit of a slippery slope about them servicing our needs on a week-to-week basis for sub-varsity games and et cetera. So I don't disagree with you, Troy, at all. And if they're not responsive to the voices of the athletic directors and also the football coaches, I mean,
if our football coaches came back, if the association came back and said, no, we're really split, or we're 65% in favor of this, but our coaches, and I'll speak as openly as I can, is basically adamantly opposed to it as well. I mean, I think someone like you and Danny, Andre, Scott, I mean, people that are much more level-headed than someone like me, to try to engage some type of dialogue to where they'll consider this, or at least let us get through this year like that, and let's have open dialogue in March again to where we can figure it out. But it doesn't seem like they want to meet us in the middle at all.
Well, I would agree with that sentiment, and I think that your suggestion is a good suggestion, that at least right now, with so much going on, could we possibly, as a starting point for the conversation, agree to go back to our previous way of doing things and then re-engage with this process when we have more time? Because as James mentioned, you know, they started this process early in March to discuss the football officials selection process, and obviously had reasons that conversation got upended. Any other thoughts on this? Like I said, I wanted to give you guys an update. So what I was going to do, unless you guys disagree, was to work with Coach Clancy and his association to try to get a hold of Alvin this week and ask for a meeting. And at the same time, I think that we need to contact the state THSADA office to just ask what options are available to us in regards to this situation with our local chapter. Anybody opposed to that method of doing things?
Ray, I think that's a really good idea for you guys to approach it from your end, and then Rusty and I and our officials committee can approach it through the larger THSADA organization, Mike Fitch and his folks, and make sure we're attacking this issue from both ends. So we're happy to facilitate that.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, James. Thank you. I know that you've got other things to do. Is there anything that you want to add before you jump off?
No, sir. I just the only thing to kind of piggyback on what Coach Cox was saying is, when we met as coaches, the one thing, because our representation does have some that are already in the playoffs from smaller schools, that when we went and met with them to make the amendment for 5A, 6A this year, and then come back to the table when we hopefully have some type of return to a normal athletic calendar and athletic situation to have that moving forward, and then make the adjustment. We did not feel that what we were going to be asking of them in the way that their wording is and their policy is that big of a change. But for us as athletic administrators, it's a tremendous, logistical relief to be able to plan ahead, especially, school districts that have multiple schools in multiple places. And then those of you that have different classifications in different regions. I mean, there's just so much that goes into it. So the consensus from us was we don't really feel like we're asking for that big of a change, but in our world, it's a tremendous amount of flexibility from us to make decisions for our competitions. So,
yep.
If anybody thinks of anything after that, just, feel free to reach out, and then, Coach and I'll get together with whoever wants to join in and put something together. And I feel that as well as we worked with them getting officials picks put together, I do feel confident that they're going to listen to reason. At least, my working relationship with Alvin has always been pretty positive. So I feel like, they'll come to the table with an open mind, and I think that, what we're asking is pretty reasonable.
Hey, Coach Clancy?
Yes, sir.
Who's leading the charge for this for the officials? Was Alvin doing it, or Brian, or somebody else back in March?
Brian Perry was the one that organized it.
Okay, and Alvin just picked the ball up and ran with it?
I believe at that time he had just become the president. I'm not sure of their timeline, but
okay.
the way that it came across to us is that leadership structure was new, kind of as ours was. Ours usually transitions out at the end of May, and I think that was, the intention was in March to kind of get the leadership for the next year together to start the conversations, and then everything got turned upside down, and we just kind of pushed it all back to the summertime. But that was the way I understood it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Ray.
Yes.
I'm with Troy on this, and I think there's strength in numbers, really. And so, if we basically say we're all going to go UIL, or a majority of us, and they're not getting any games on the weekend, then maybe that does change their mind.
I don't disagree with that at all. And to me, if we get to a point where we can't have a dialogue that like Coach Clancy is mentioning, and it's more like what the meeting was last November at your place, Debbie, then I think that really puts us in a really bad position of having to make that decision to utilize officials from outside of our area that our coaches might not be familiar with. Just because, again, there's not the working relationship that we need in order to have a true partnership and utilize their officials. So I don't disagree with that at all. But I would say this, I think that and I might be totally wrong about this. I think that we need to try to make a last ditch attempt to see if we can come to a compromise. But as I told James this morning, and I'm telling all of you guys, because I represent you guys, and not in this capacity, not Cypher ISD, is that I think that they need to understand that that's what their process is starting to galvanize, which is people are getting frustrated to the point of going outside of the region for officials for some of our most meaningful games. So, okay, with that being said, James, thank you. I do want to piggyback off of that when we're talking about playoffs. And my first question of our panelists is I want to talk about playoff meetings, et cetera, and what you guys' thoughts are about whether it would be beneficial to be meeting in person or virtual. I know, Debbie, that your staff with Team Tennis did a fantastic job of hosting meetings that were Zoom-based with breakout rooms, et cetera, and I thought that worked quite well. So I guess that's my first question before I give an update. I know I've contacted most of the neutral sites, bigger, larger neutral sites that a lot of us typically utilize for playoffs. And I want to give you guys an update on where they are with their stadiums. But I want to start, I guess, the conversation with our panelists. And we can kind of start, Debbie, with you, since I know Kyle on your staff kind of spearheaded that. But what your thought is about those by-district plans, you know, that maybe you would have with Dina there in Fort Bend and an area with us, et cetera, how you see that going, because we're getting closer to those football playoff meetings.
Yeah, so as far as football goes, I think at least that first round, just because of the site already being determined, we'll probably just do those virtually, similar to what we did with team tennis. But actually with volleyball, Dina's already sent out the invitation and we're planning on meeting in person next week.
Okay. Troy, what about you guys with volleyball, like first round playoff meetings and football? Are you planning to just kind of plunge forward with our past practice and getting everybody together, or?
Yeah, Janet was planning on taking our volleyball coaches to the meeting, and in football, the first round with it predetermined, basically, I think most of that can be done by Zoom. And then when we get to the second round, I think that more than likely that'll be some type of in-person.
You know, one of the things I always enjoyed about being in Region 3 is that we all worked kind of together, and we were able to knock out, for those of us that had large multi-school school districts, in an hour, we could knock out every playoff matchup in every detail, including officials in past years, not last year. But one of the things I noticed when we had schools go in Region 2 is that was not their practice. They wanted to meet individually, school by school and coach by coach. And so what took us an hour in Region 3 might take 2 days in Region 2. And I see some of you that have had the Region 2 experience shaking your heads, probably laughing at us. I know some of us, we have a larger presence now in Houston of Region 2 schools that are now aligned for playoff purposes. So Willie, I see you and Danny here with you guys, as far as how you see that going with by district and then possibly area matchups. Would that be something, would you prefer to meet in person? And now that we're kind of all aligned, maybe a little bit more for those first 2 rounds and do more of a Region 3 model, or how do you see that with your coaches? Or would you prefer even like a virtual environment for that?
Well, kind of like you were saying, in the past in Region 2, I mean, we've done everything over the phone, and it's taken 2 days, 3 days. You have to plan a week ahead of time and start going with the 14 scenarios just to have a place to play up around Brenham and College Station or Austin or whatever the case may be. I have no problem doing it over Zoom. I think you can get it all done pretty quick if everybody's on together.
Let me ask you this though, like for those of us, and again, Danny, you're a part of this, Vince is a part of this as well. You know, with us having the 4 Houston districts lined up for those first 2 rounds of the playoffs, I guess what I'm asking though, do you feel like that's something that we can maybe gather our coaches together and have a collective meeting, whether it be in person or on Zoom, and knock all of that out? Because for those first 2 rounds, we would be utilizing the same facilities here in Houston instead of having to go to Austin like we have had to do in the past, you know, for the first round or second round, et cetera. Danny, you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, because we're always the outlier. We're always the ones. My principals pitch a fit about coaches missing and leaving and going to set up something that they can do. So I do believe that we will be fine with the Zoom situation. You know what I'm saying? Our deal, and we're really, I don't know about the rest of everyone, but I'm really getting a lot of feedback from principals and assistant superintendents, et cetera, about having to get subs because with the, you know, the COVID outbreaks and stuff, you know, we're having to wrestle with that a little bit. So the more that we can do and not have to leave is better. Now, with the first round kind of taking care of itself, I mean, we all know what we're doing now with, you know, less than 50% electronic tickets, et cetera. And we're actually doing that on our campus with our campus competitions too, the electronic tickets. So I would say Willie and I will get on the phone call a little later and maybe with Sandra and I'll get it figured out. But we always have a hard time. Our principals do not want our coaches all getting together, and we really don't want. I don't meet with my ADs face to face. We're still Zooming, and so we're real anti face to face meeting out here. So,
what about you guys, Vince?
I think we can meet. We can do a Zoom, Ray. I don't think that's a big deal.
Okay. The next thing I do want to give everybody an update is on playoff dates. and because this is going to be such an unusual year for all of us with the push back. So the first round, of course, the by-district round is the 10th through the 12th. And as it's been mentioned several times, that's typically a home and home type deal by finish in the district. And as Willie mentioned, it's usually pretty predetermined, and that has been something that's been good for us. And I'm making the assumption, and if anybody disagrees with that, I'm assuming, and Debbie and I talked about this, I'm making the assumption that whoever's hosting, that their COVID protocols would be the one that would be taking, that wouldn't be something that would be negotiated. I don't know if I'm asking the question the right way. Do you guys on the panel feel like the COVID protocols, even regarding the percentages of the stadium that we're selling into, would be something that would be up for playoff negotiation? Or do you feel like, especially in that by-district round, that the host would be determining that? Guys, any?
Yeah, I think it needs to be, and I'm not saying negotiated, but I think it needs to be reasonable and fair with that district's protocols. And I'll just give you, for instance, so let's say we were playing at a stadium that only allowed 1,200 tickets. Okay, I got to respect that. But if they tell me I can't bring my band and drill team because they're going to sit their band and drill team on the visitor side, well, then I'm going to have an issue with that.
Right.
So I have no problem with seating protocols. And if the home side is bigger and they get a bigger percentage, I don't have a problem with that. But if it started infringing on, they were going to sit people on the visitor side and reduce my tickets because of that, I would struggle with that.
Right. Agreed. Anyone else towards that end?
Yeah, Ray, I just dealt with that situation because I have 4A schools and we're playing playoff games this weekend. And fortunately enough, we have 3 of those games played at our locations. Well, the folks coming in, they're not doing what we're doing, right? And there's no disrespect to them. They're just not doing the same things that we're doing. And so we really had to, I think when you all get to the table with folks, you really have to go from A to Z exactly what you're doing if that thing is going to be held at your place. And then the decision is made from there. Hey, are you willing to give a little bit, or is this what it is? Because like I said, I ran into that situation where coach didn't understand that this is the way it was. And, he wanted to back out of a deal, but, we have to, again, put our kids and our coaches first throughout this situation. And again, your numbers may not look like my numbers. We've talked about that before. And as we see numbers increase, it's more important for us to do the things that we know are necessary for us to continue playing. I think we've done a great job. We've had to cancel games. We've had to move some things around. But for the most part, we've done a great job because we're still playing. And we want to continue to play, and we want to continue to have those other sports. So I think when you sit down with those other districts and those other coaches, and making sure your coaches understand as well that everything needs to be mapped out and really talked about and discussed as to what those plans are going to look like.
I think that's really good advice. So whether that's capacity, whether that's ticket sale procedures, whether that even filters down to the mask wearing. I mean, we all have our different politics that we have to deal with. And Troy, you and I have talked a lot about that. I know, Dina, we've talked a little bit about it. So I think it needs to be clear. That way we're setting everybody up for success. And that first round, of course, is pretty much predetermined. And I do know from talking to all of you guys in the run up to this, we're all doing something different. I know Troy and I are somewhat selling in about the same percentage. Katie has sold a little bit more. Danny, I know you and I talked about how you guys are handling that in Conroe. And I would say that percentage that we're selling into is much different from stadium to stadium. So I do think that that's going to have to be clear and really a part of the negotiation. To give you guys an update though, my thought was that I would start to be more willing this year to pay to quicker, maybe even in the area round, to get into a larger stadium so I wouldn't have to worry about capacity. I contacted U of H very early because I felt like, again, we have a Christmas around the third round. There's the week before, obviously, this year, and U of H has some availability. And I hope that I'm at the top of the list because of when I contacted them. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But they have availability for the weekend of the 17th through the 19th, which would be the area round of the playoffs. Contact there, and I've called him David T. He's been really good about contacting, communicating with us. He's indicated that they will be willing to work with us. It might be a little bit more expensive than it has been in the past. Instead of giving general admission tickets, roll tickets where people could sit wherever they wanted, it would have to probably go through their ticketing portal into a reserved seat, like they're selling into the U of H game, and where they typically only open that lower bowl for those of us that have played there. They're probably going to be open, having to spread the attendance out through the entire structure, which means more ushers, higher costs, etc. So there is availability that weekend. And I asked specifically about an afternoon slot and evening slot on Saturday the 26th. And he needs to get back to me, but he felt like that they might be able to pull that off as well. Rice, I talked to Rice University. Rice also had indicated they did have a recent game that was added back on December the 12th on the by-district round. So they're not going to be available on the 12th, but they did have availability on the 17th through the 19th, and then also the 26th. So I know that some of Rice's amenities are not quite what U of H's are, but at the same time, one thing they do have going for them is a big stadium that people could spread out in. So that's something to possibly consider. A lot of the people that we dealt with at NRG collectively in the past are not working there anymore. Justin White has been furloughed, so he's not working there at NRG. I know that some of you, we talked about this before, Daryl Simon passed away earlier this fall. And I did talk to Jeff Gaines, the vice president of NRG this week, and kind of shared some emails back and forth with him. It does not appear that NRG will be available at all for any high school football playoff games this year. They have a Stephen F. Austin graduation. They have a Texans football game on the 27th. And given the COVID mitigation type stuff and cleaning that they have to do between games, they don't feel like they can pull off games on the 26th. There's a Texans game. I even asked them about January 1st and 2nd. I believe the Texans are playing at home that week. So it does not look like that NRG would be available at all for us. And I know that I think we played the Region 3. I guess it was the third round of the playoffs. All of those games were there at NRG last year, and we had agreed to that. So that's a big change. And so I just wanted everybody to kind of know that. Moving
Ray,
on. Yes.
Hey, Ray. Did the guy from David, when you talked to him from the U of H, did he say anything about, give you any guidelines on pricing for use of that stadium?
They have given us a pretty good workup the last few years as far as cost estimates. And what he was working on, Vince, that's a great question, is he said that he was going to do two things for me. Number one, some of us could not play at U of H last year because of conflicts with basketball that they had going on at Hoffheinz, the new Hoffheinz, or I guess it's not Hoffheinz anymore, is it? It's a Fertitta Center. And he said that they thought that they could work through those things. So he was going to check on any conflicts with basketball, and then he was going to rework up kind of pricing for us and get that back to me. When he does that, I can push that out to everybody. And like I said, hopefully I'm at the top of the list, and hopefully we're playing. But if not, I think that's always a great place to play. It really is a nice place to play. And for the most part, the amenities there are pretty good as far as locker rooms, etc. Anything else with football playoff or even volleyball playoffs as we move into that? I know we have volleyball playoff meetings, probably next week.
Hey, Ray, I'd just like to know, as far as even this panel, is everybody planning on trying to host football games for neutral sites? Or is there anyone who's not, I should say?
Debbie, I'm actually hosting a 3A playoff game Friday night this week in Moorhead, just because it happened to be open, and I had another foursome for the 20th. So yes, I'm doing it, but they're going by my guidelines. I've got a section for them to social distance their support group, similar to when we went to Legacy. I have a section there for that, and then there's 1,520 seats on each side. And that's all there's going to be, you know, no matter what we do. We did our tickets internal this year, which was my biggest threat. And we're working through those things. And these are actually the first 2 times where I've had 2 outside school districts accessing tickets. So anyway, yes, we're doing it. We're making them go by our guidelines. Now, getting people from Rockdale and Columbus to wear a mask when they come inside the stadium, I'm not going to fight that battle, but we are going to tell them to come in with one on. So we, you know, don't get in trouble with the county out here. But
well, one of the things that I would suggest towards Debbie's question is this: given the situation that I just described with NRG not being available and U of H only really having a couple of slots, I mean, for the 3rd round, we're all having to play really on Saturday the 26th. I don't see how we're going to be able to even have the games without all of us kind of working together to try to host. And I know that expenses, even for us on the 26th, we have some, you know, with that being holiday pay, there might be some things that are different, but I'm hopeful that all of us can try to work together, you know, to make these games happen for each of us collectively. Because I do think it's going to be tough with us finding places to play, because, you know, NRG not being available is a big deal for a lot of us.
Hey, Ray,
are your teams, are your bands traveling with your teams when you're playing road games, or are you keeping your bands at home?
Well, we're in a little bit different situation because we basically play us, but we do go over to Spring Branch as well. But we have traveled our bands and drill team to every game so far. Hey, Willie, did you have something?
Yes. You know, since District 16 is in Region 2 for you, have you had any conversations? Because our 3rd round game on the 26th is going to be somebody from the other side. Have you had any conversations with the other side of Region 2 about the game on the 26th?
No, sir, I haven't. But, you know, Willie, one of the things I felt like just from even this position here, I wanted to look at those stadium and bring information to this meeting really for the benefit of everybody. But my next job that I was going to look at was those stadiums that might be available, you know, for a good 3rd round matchups for those of us that might be heading up in that direction if we're fortunate enough to be playing the day after Christmas. I am concerned about, I mean, even with our stadiums and even some of the collegiate stadiums, about worker availability the day after Christmas, you know? So I think that's going to be tough. I know that here in Cy-Fair, we basically said, look, we just might need the help, you know, and we're you know, really relying on other people to provide that same type of help to us. So I'm working on that though, Willie, next, to be quite honest with you. I want to move to basketball because we're starting basketball, and I don't know about the rest of you guys. I'm really concerned about basketball, given the nature of the sport, the physical exertion, the close contact, the sustained physical exertion, the hard breathing, being inside. We've already had a couple of issues, and I mean, we literally just got started with that. So I'm interested more so about mitigation efforts first. What are you doing, if anything, in regards to your basketball programs to try to mitigate or reduce the risk of you know, what we're dealing with here with COVID? And I guess, Troy, you're a basketball guy, so I'm gonna start with you, and then we'll kind of go from there.
No, I was at a game last night, and I had the exact same concerns. I mean, it's I don't have a very positive feeling about where this ends with basketball, just because the constant contact. I mean, we're doing a lot of things that we did in volleyball, but I don't think that's going to be nearly as effective. You know, we're keeping people behind the benches. You know, the Harris County is going to come out and visit THSADA next week at a boys game, which is not going to be good. So we're going to limit seats there. But you know, Ray, at the end of the day, they're going to play a game. They're going to have contact, and I have this sneaky suspicion that we're going to have more issues with COVID in basketball than we've had in volleyball, and more than we've had in football.
Let me ask you this. So, you know, we haven't done this year, but one of the things that I've thought about is, you know, this summer, a lot of times our kids were working out with Gators, et cetera, during summer workouts, even some of those that were held outside. I haven't talked to our coaches about it, but I am just trying to reduce risk, thinking about, you know, is that something during portions of practice that we need to consider, you know, to at least reduce the risk in the campus environment for school-based practices. Is that anything that any of you guys have talked about or even considered as we're transitioning and don't have the physical spacing that we have with volleyball?
Yeah, we've actually recommended that. We have one girls program that is doing that full time, and that's really one of the reasons why they've been able to stay up and running. But we've already had to shut down 2 boys teams and 2 other girls teams, because basically when the emergency management does their contract tracing, they look at it and they're like, the whole entire JV varsity, they're all close contact, so they're all out.
One of the, I don't know if you guys have done this, is one of the things that we did on our buses, because we started losing a lot of kids for contact tracing from riding on the bus. And so we put guidelines in place to, if we can, go 1 to a seat, put the kids against the window. And we now require our kids, and have provided, not only do we require them to wear a face mask, but we're also wearing a face shield that we provided, a face shield for each of our athletes on top of the mask. Many of our, in our on-campus environments, when our kids were wearing in the classroom a face mask plus the addition of a desk shield, they were not being contact traced out of the classroom environment. And so, utilizing that as an example, I asked our health services if they would consider the same thing if we were wearing both of those things while traveling, and received a kind of an affirmative on that. So that's one thing that we're doing to try to reduce the residual amount of kids that are contact traced out. I mean, because for even us to get across the district here in Cy-Fair, much less to travel across the way to play you guys, Troy, or go across town, or even to go up to see Danny, you know, that we're way more than 15 minutes on the bus. So that's something that's helped us. I don't know if it would help you. We're all having our own protocols, but that might be something that you might want to consider. Anything else though, as far as like basketball mitigation processes, because I'm all here for it, because we have some good teams out here, and selfishly, I feel a tremendous sense of responsibility to get them to the finish line to be everything that they can be this year. So I'd take any suggestions you guys have as far as basketball is concerned, anything creative that you guys have done. Paige, is there anything from Spring Branch that y'all talked about from a group of basketball coaches?
Well, I think one thing that we're looking at as a district is, you know, possibly instituting testing among our high school basketball teams, that we would just be testing them. You know, we're looking at being a state testing site, and we're looking at starting small. So that's something that we are in the very beginning discussions of. I wouldn't say that I don't know that that's exactly proactive. I think certainly some of the things that you've mentioned, like on the bus, I always, like I said, I feel like I come to this group and I'm always learning something new. So I think certainly things that you're talking about with the face shield and the face masks, 1 per seat, is probably being more proactive. I think we are probably all worried a little bit about the community spread. So I think that's something that our district's very concerned about basketball. And I know, again, so, but beyond that, as you know, Troy alluded to, I think, you know, you've got these things that you've done in volleyball, but I just don't know that they're going to go far enough in basketball. So I do think that there probably are a lot of times, as Debbie mentioned, that maybe you're not going full speed. So you could wear that, you know, could pull the gaiter up and try to diminish the amount of close contact. I just, I think it's, you know, people just have to, I think, you know, they just have to understand how important that is in terms of trying to mitigate, you know, the risk. Because I do think, like you said, that it's gonna, it'll lead to closures of teams if we don't get a hold of it.
One thing on buses, you were talking about 1 to a seat. In addition to that, one of the things that, and not me, because I'm not one of those smart people, but they talk about the recycling of the air is a major problem with COVID. In the schools, we've kind of all kinds of filters and UV lights and everything. One of the things that we mandate, school buses or athletic buses, is at the first row, the middle of the bus, and the last row, whether it's 30 below or 100 degrees out, those windows have to be down to get the circulation from the outside in.
We've also done that, Troy, and asked that, we know that we have air conditioning, but this year we really put those windows down. And then most of our buses also have that middle vent, have some middle vents that you can pop up. And I don't think any of our coaches really have thought about that or known what those things are. But we've kind of informally talked a little bit about that as well, just to, like as you're mentioning, have the air circulate more in the bus and reduce the risk of transmission.
Yeah. So that's not going to reduce a kid sitting next to it, but it will help the transmission. What the bus drivers are saying, if you have that open plus that window next to the bus, it'll actually fly stuff out their window. It's getting that much circulation through it. So, does that fix things? It's just an added thing we're trying to do.
Right. Well, and selfishly, I'm going to ask this next question because it's something that we struggled with. We had what we felt like was a great system for volleyball as far as selling tickets to our contest and how we were prioritizing the parents. And I know, Debbie, you guys had utilized more very similar in kind of what we've done, but we've looked and it's not been a problem because of the amount of capacity that we get into our volleyball games. But looking at historically, like what we sold for basketball, we have more pressure at basketball games on our capacity. So we've been selling into right under 40% or at 40% of our facility for volleyball and have thought to do that in basketball. But the problem being is if 40% of your ticket sales are all on one side of the bleachers, then you have too many people sitting on one side. And many of our district policies indicate which side of the gymnasium home and visitors need to sit. So I'm going to ask the quick question. What are you doing to help with that? Rupert, I'm going to start with you guys. Are you selling individual tickets for either side and having multiple ticket sellers, either side of the gymnasium, to try to make sure that you don't overcrowd one side? And also, have you had to go back into district policy to amend some language about where the home side sits and the visiting side given this situation? Rupert, I'm going to go ahead and start with you.
We've designated our home and visitor sides to be separate. We sell them on our online ticket sales as, separate locations. Our problem has been is when we increase the number of tickets being sold, they're all sitting in the middle of the stadium anyway. So whether it's 500 or 1,500, they're all centered in the middle. So we've had to adjust not increasing those numbers as much. But we do have a system in place to where they're separate. We try to, a visitor ticket comes in and goes to the visitor side and a home ticket goes on the home side. So that's what we've tried to do to eliminate too many people on one side.
Debbie, I know I asked you this question, so I'm going to just, let you give the same answer you gave me to everybody else, because I know you're not doing online ticketing for campus-based events, I don't think. So how are you planning to handle like that issue with home and away and where people are sitting?
Right. So we also sold at 40% for volleyball, but we're actually dropping that down to 30% for basketball, but we're still going to allow for 10% for passes or for that parent card. Like if a parent walks up, they're late to their kid's game, even if we've met our 30%, we're going to go ahead and sell to that particular parent. But we're selling student adult on the visiting side, student adult on the home side, different color tickets. And we actually have our security guards that are standing at the door of the competition gym and monitoring that ticket, making sure they have the right ticket, the right color to come in on that side. And they also have a clicker. So they're helping us monitor the overall capacity. And if their child plays on the 9th grade team and then another sibling is on the varsity, they'll still be able to, they don't have to still purchase the one ticket. They can just show that ticket with their parent card and then we'll allow them in.
Are any of you guys clearing the gyms between contests, between level contests? Dina, you said you guys are. Rupert, I see you're not. Troy, what about you guys?
No, we're not clearing. What we do, and we've done the same thing at middle school events, we'll ask that if your child just play, if you would please keep in mind the parents that want to come in, because what we do is if we've sold 250 on the home side and we'll have 12 leave, we'll count those and we'll sell 12 more tickets to where they can't get back in. When we go to basketball games, and we haven't started with non-district, but in all district games, we'll have distinct home and visitor sides. And like Summer Creek, THSADA, we'll bring them in 2 different entrances. bring them into their side, try to keep them separated. Kingwood and Umber, our older schools, are our problem childs because, like in Kingwood, the home side is just distinctly bigger. Summer Creek at THSADA would be 3,000 people there. If we could sell that many tickets, it seats 2,000. We're going to sell 500, 250 on a side.
Yeah. So are you going to be selling at 40% inside and
we're at 25%.
25% inside.
Yeah, we're selling for a 2,000 seat gymnasium. We're selling 500 tickets.
Yeah. Willie, what about you guys in spring? What are you guys doing? Looking forward to basketball?
I'll mute this. We kind of took a page out of Debbie's parent card thing. We have issued parent cards to all of our players, and a parent card is worth 2 tickets. You can purchase 2 tickets per parent card. We clear the gym after every game, and we had a new set come in after every game. Now, again, if you're a child player, you have 2 children playing on 2 different levels, you only have to buy 1 ticket. And the way we're handling our visiting team is the visiting coach will send our home coach a roster, and as the parents show up to buy tickets, they cross off, they identify which child they're coming to see. They can buy 2 tickets for that child's name. We cross that child's name off the roster, and that's done. We're way under capacity, but spring and Westfield's gyms really can't accommodate too many people just by the way the gym's set up and where the benches are. So we're probably going to sell about, figured 15 kids per team, 2 tickets, about 60 tickets per game. And that's it. And they're going to have to step outside the gym after the game and leave.
Yeah. Dina, what about you guys in Fort Bend with the ticket selling process for basketball?
Sure. We're doing similar to what we did for volleyball. We're sending links to our coaches. We are not going to have any general admission potentially because of the size of our gyms. Some of you are saying you have 2 sides. Some in our gyms, we only have 1 side. And when we're talking counting seats, maybe 30 to 45 seats with the 6-foot distancing wanted per seat. So it's a struggle, but we're trying to allow at least the participants' parents to get into the game for those events, and allowing also a few visiting parents as well. We are clearing the gyms after each game. We're sometimes utilizing both gyms, the competition and the auxiliary gyms, so we can have time to clean in between. But like everyone else here, we're concerned about the capacity, the safety of the kids with the basketball contact, and trying to keep everybody, including the fans, to be able to come, but also be safe for our student athletes and coaches as well.
Troy, going back to you, are you having then, like Debbie, 2 different ticket sellers selling at different sides?
Yeah. So during district, we'll have 2 distinct entry points, 1 for the home and 1 for visitor.
And then with your multi-gym setup and playing sub-varsity games, is that going to be basically a 3rd ticket seller, or are you going to have one?
We have access to do them both from the 2 different sides.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
We actually have 1 ticket seller for the competition gym, and we'll have 1 for the auxiliary gym. But
different roles then, right?
Yeah. Yes. I do have a question though. So I know, like with our junior highs, we'll have to clear the gym, or at least, like Troy said, we'll ask if the parents will leave. But does anybody have a great idea for how you're staging your parents for like that next game? Like we ended up having to cut off football ticket sales by like the 3rd quarter and not let any more parents in.
That's what we did, Debbie. That's what we did. So like in football, we stopped at the end of the 3rd quarter, and we stopped ticket sales for the first game, and parents would start queuing up, and we tried to put like this distancing type like things on the sidewalk to try to help us out. And really that's been pretty good. I am a little bit more concerned about it in basketball, given that we're going to be queuing up in the space to do that, when it's cold, etc. So I don't have a great idea, but I guess I would have the same question. I don't know how else to deal with that though, because we are clear the gyms with middle school basketball. Anyone else have any ideas about that? Okay. Next thing I want to get to just real quickly is with the release of like that we can go to tournaments in soccer, in softball, in baseball. I know a lot of us had to start scrambling in regards to tournaments. Is there anything that you've done recently to kind of kickstart that process? And I guess it's a two-part question. Are any of you guys restricting travel outside of your school district, whether that be outside a certain radius of your district, or not allowing overnight travel for out-of-town tournaments? I'm going to go ahead and start, Willie, with you, and kind of what you're doing tournament-wise with the new adjustments that kind of came out.
Okay, we're not going to do anything different. We do have a travel radius for varsity is 50 miles, for JV is 35 miles, and for freshmen and middle schools is 25 miles. Now, Armando does most of the scheduling for middle school, so they really don't have much opportunity to get out too far, but we're going to keep the same radius we keep for everything. 50, 35, and 25.
Yeah, Danny, what about you guys? What are you guys doing in regards to organizing tournaments, you know, for those sports, you know, because that kind of came out quickly, and we've got soccer coming out soon. And what are you doing about overnight travel?
Well, am I unmuted? Yeah, we are, we're handling it on a case-by-case basis. I mean, like everybody else, we started off, you're not going anywhere. And then this one, you know, needed to go to Austin. Well, early we said no. Right now, I can tell you what our principals and our athletic directors telling everybody, there's enough competition here close to stay close. And anything out of the Houston area, or like, you know, we'll have some teams that they automatically go to Austin for this unbelievable tournament, et cetera. That would be on a case-by-case basis, but we are allowing the overnight to our same criteria. But it's, you know, in the past they've had to supplement from Booster Club money, from activity fund money, et cetera, for some of the extra stuff they wanted to do in regards to rooms and that type of stuff. And we're just being a lot more controlling of that.
I know that we had the same restrictions that if it was outside the 100-mile radius of our school district, we didn't pay any expenses. But we have said that if it's not post-district UIL competition, that we're not allowing overnight travel. So that's, you know, disappointing. Some of our soccer schools had invites to big tournaments in Austin, et cetera. And, you know, I hate to tell them no, but that's kind of where we are right now. We're not even allowing professional travel unless it's for special circumstances overnight. So just to go around the horn, Rupert, are you guys allowing overnight travel right now for any of your teams?
No, we're staying within the 100 miles and no overnight travel, no overnight stay.
Andre, what about you guys?
No, sir. No overnight travel. Again, like Danny said, there's enough competition around the city that takes care of our needs.
Debbie Decker?
Well, no overnight travel, and obviously we're shrinking our bigger tournaments down, you know, trying to use the multiple sites and whatnot to accommodate as many as we can. But what we're seeing too, like big soccer tournament, a lot of the Dallas area schools that would come down are not coming down. So that kind of takes some of the pressure off too.
Dina, overnight travel? No?
No overnight travel.
Paige, what about you guys?
Yeah, no, we just talked to our coaches early on, and we just told them no overnight travel. And even for state, we're just looking at, you know, was that really necessary? Where we might have, even at regionals, we might have spent the night. We'll just look at that, and so no.
Well, just one other thing to possibly consider as we kind of wrap things up is I know I had called Susan about track because we have like an internal sub-varsity track league. And I was concerned about like how we were going to handle that, because as it was, we were already running 3 sites a week just to handle high school sub-varsity and 6 sites a week to handle middle school. And that's just internal. So if we had to, you know, separate grade levels or divisions by site, that would take what's already hairy and make it impossible. So I'll be interested to see what will be coming out soon with that. But I don't know about the rest of you guys. Have any of you guys got far enough along to plan out track schedules at this point for your schools? See, I feel much better. So anyway, I could probably do this all day, because as the year goes on, there are more questions that I have that make it quite difficult. And I could probably come up with a lot of examples that we struggled with here and keep this meeting going all day. I do appreciate everybody's time today. I know that this has run long, and every time that we plan these, I think we're going to go short, and I'm going to try to pinch us all back. But it seems like everything that we've talked about are important things. If I get that price structure from U of H, I'll push that out to everybody as we kind of move forward. And I do think when we start, especially getting to that third round of the playoffs on the 26th, that we're going to have to kind of work together to handle those matchups about how we're going to group them. That's worked out pretty well the last couple of years. And I think we would probably need to start planting some seeds with some of our coaches right now that, NRG is not available and that things are going to be a little bit different this year. Any last thoughts or questions from anybody in the chat or on the panel?
In the second round, do we feel like that's going to be a home and home flip, Ray and Debbie, between Willie and Sandra? The winners of us and Spring and Aldine against the winners of the Cy-Fairs, Katie's, Kleins, et cetera, the second round. Don't we feel like that's going to be home and home, and then we're going by whatever our mitigations are? When you come to my place, you can bring a band and a drill team. And I know I don't want to belabor that point, but we had to go some places in non-district where they say, okay, well, you can't have your band and your drill team. So they set all of theirs over there next, that's, I'm not going to do that to y'all.
Yeah, I think like Andre said, I think he said it really best, that needs to be a critical part of the conversation at the playoff meeting, that we discuss that and work that out so that there's not anything that's left unsaid and then creates a misunderstanding between all of us. As far as the home and home, that's something that Debbie and I had even talked about. We have had in the Region 3 side of it, a really kind of good agreement the last few years to where it's kind of us and HISD and Fort Bend and Katy, and we kind of worked out, well, depending on who the matchup is, who would host for whomever else. I think that's just going to have to, we might not always have as clean a situation as that. And so I would want to continue to have that conversation, but I do see that we're going to be playing in high school stadiums longer, given the shortage of some of these larger venues that we've worked into. And I think we're all going to have to cooperate with one another, because it's awful hard to say a third round matchup and that it's going to be home and home, Yeah. But the third round is the 26th. So, availability of workers and stuff is going to come into play.
Is anybody going to try to host anything on the 24th?
I mean, we'll be available. We'll be available if we can find workers.
I've been told no.
We might have to ask you to bring your own workers.
On the 24th, as it stands right now, and I'm sure everything changes if it's one of ours. But we can talk about this for hours. I mean, it's going on in my head all the time. Where we're going to put everybody.
One of the things too, I think one of the things that we run into at Tully, because it is such an old stadium, and you guys that have seats are able to really institute the social distancing, which has been difficult. I would say that we've had that range of a range of capacity, and we have sort of experimented throughout our district season to really try to find that upper range in terms of what we can do, and to also to try to find the limitations. So that has been where before we were able, I think at Tully we were able to really host quite a few big games. When you look at how the fine arts has taken up the bottom bowl, and then kind of what that leaves at the top, and then you've got the bleachers. Not that some of you don't also have bleachers, but I do find that we're at the Coliseum with those seats, you're able to do, you're able to really space it out more. That's been something that has been, I think, a challenge for us, and something that we worked through our season to try to figure out, well, how much can we do, and of course, how willing are the folks that are there going to cooperate with what we're trying to do, right? When people cooperate, you're able to probably hold a little bit more than when they don't, you know.
Well,
we've learned maybe the hard way sometimes.
I think like going back to Danny's question, I think we'd be hard pressed to host on the 24th. I mean, as it is, it's probably going to be hard to host on the 26th, but I feel like that I've told our people here that, you know, whether it be us or someone outside, that we might need to get it done, you know, on the 26th. The 24th would be pretty tough. So again, like you just said, Danny, all these are questions that all of us are facing. We could sit here all day kicking this around. I appreciate you guys, the panelists, everybody that was on. And yes, Sandra, before we get done, I don't know how I missed the NIAAA report, but give it to us, because I know we've got convention coming up and it is going to be virtual. I apologize for that.
It's at the same time, Ray, but for us, December 7th through the 9th would be the LTI classes, and then the 10th through the 14th would be the actual conference. So hopefully, you know, with our conference being the 7th through 10th, it wouldn't conflict too much. And then the CAA exam, I know there's a couple of athletic directors have emailed me in regard to the CAA exam. It'll be offered in Aldine on December the 8th.
Okay, that's obviously an important date. And so one of the things too, I'll send out the link for the video if anyone missed it, and then I will put that information in the email that I send out to everybody.
And Ray, if we have any athletic directors that wanting to take the test, I can offer that December the 1st, so it doesn't conflict with our conference.
Okay, that's awesome.
Okay.
The other thing too, and I'm just going to say this in conclusion.
Thank you, Ray.
Yes, ma'am. I apologize again. In conclusion, we have had a great growth in our membership. Scott talked about that, but we're missing some critical demographic information like cell phone numbers. And I don't know about you guys, but I still utilize a phone list that was sent out about 2 years ago of Region 5 members all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm redoing my email listing right now to make it updated, is I'm probably going to send out a survey. And if you don't mind including like your best contact, send that in to us, and then I can then publish to our membership, of course, only, you know, a listing of cell phone numbers, et cetera, because I think that could be very helpful to all of us. Okay. And Bob, I guess we're probably not going to run out of time here, probably outspend our bill, but I appreciate you offering us this opportunity to all get together and kind of dialogue. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Happy to assist.
Okay, guys.
Hey, Willie Amendola, will you stay on for a second so we can talk?
Thank you.